You know I've been around and doing it, but now it's my time to shine and start proving it. I'm losing it, I'm moving it. The city is where I'm made, Bostonian flow, I kick it a back day. Yeah, I got game, God in a fan way. We the city of the champs, every sport we play. Spit wetter than the harbor, yeah, I'm flowing like the Charles. I be speeding on this beat, call it Turnpike Miles. Yeah, it's Google signing on, John to the Hancock, and I'm always key, I'm ready to unlock. I be doing big things.
Welcome back, everyone, to the newest edition of Once a Week. I'm Billy Janludis, and we've got another incredible and great guest for you, but also another great speaker who's creating a massive impact with schools and teenagers. And I've seen it firsthand earlier this year at Michigan State University. He's been inspiring students through his own story and life experiences based around the concept of resilience, while at the same time using the power of small gestures, high fives, fist bumps, and encouragement to mentor students into the next steps they're trying to take for themselves. Now that he's speaking more and more, I definitely wanted to get him on here for you. Like I said, I've seen it firsthand, so now you get to as well. So he can share his impact and story to you guys to maybe even help you or a teenager that you are raising or even know. So guys, I welcome into you professional speaker, Nathan Wray. Nathan, it's been a while. I'm so grateful to have you here.
Man, yeah, it's been a minute. I'm excited to see you again and communicate with you again. And but man, my lead was, it was a great time. We had a lot of fun.
Right?
For sure. Yeah.
That was a
And
blast.
thank you for having me. I know we've been talking about it for a while, but I'm super excited we found the time to connect and get it done.
Yeah, right? And to give you a background, my lead is the Michigan State University gig that I met Nathan at. We both spoke at it for all these students that were coming from Detroit. And to give people an image, Nathan had the giant room, and I was so new to the area, I had the classroom. So he brings a lot of energy and power with him for the teenagers and everything like that. But Nathan, I appreciate it. Let's dive into it, because once we connected there,
Yeah.
we knew this podcast was going to happen, and scheduling everything like that. Like, we get to do it now. But I know people are going to get so much out of this. But tell them your story. How did you even get into speaking? I know we touched a little bit before we even started recording, but who are you to the people watching right now?
Yeah. So I grew up as a military brat, and I grew up all over the country, and didn't graduate on time. I had some issues in high school with alcohol, marijuana, and tobacco, and got kicked out of school my senior year, and I didn't have any direction in life. I just wasn't going anywhere, and jumping from job to job to job, and I eventually got married, and we had kids, and still was kind of struggling with alcohol and marijuana a little bit, and was still smoking, and at one point my wife was pretty much like, hey, it's got to stop, and so it took about a year. That was back in 2003, but it took about a year. October 23rd of 2003 is my sobriety date.
Nice.
But after that, I still didn't have a plan or a direction of where I was going, and I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure life out, and I was so upset with myself. I was so mad at myself. But what I knew about myself was that I could network with people really, really quickly because of being a military brat. When you move a lot, you can find ways to connect with people quick. That could be their hairstyle, the shirt they're wearing, the shoes they're wearing, their smile, whatever it is. You find ways to connect with people really, really quick. And so I knew that I had that ability. And so I just started to use it. And I started connecting with all kinds of people. I didn't care who you were. I was just going to connect with you. I eventually connected with a lady that was the chairwoman of the board for a nonprofit here in Tennessee. And the nonprofit worked with youth. And so I started working with youth. I got that job and started working with youth about 7 years ago. And my very first gig, or my very first responsibility, was Red Ribbon Week. Do you know what Red Ribbon Week is?
I've never heard of that. No.
Okay. So Red Ribbon Week it's the nation's largest drug prevention campaign, and it runs every year from October 23rd through the 31st. So that was like my first thing that I had to do, and there was an assembly scheduled at a school, and the person that was supposed to do the assembly backed out. And the school was
Okay.
like, you're up. Like, this is your job. You're up. Like, you go do it. And I was like, I don't even know what to do. I don't know what to say.
Mm.
I don't. So I had some evidence-based curriculum from Generation RX, and that is that's medication safety curriculum. And so I
Mm.
just went in and played a game with the kids, and they
Hmm.
had a blast. They had fun. And when I left, I thought, man, I can do that. Like,
Yeah.
I can go and craft my story and do that. And then after that,
Mm.
I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything with it.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
so I just kind of, did my job and connected with the students here, and, and educated them and inspired them about the dangers of drugs, alcohol, and tobacco. And then one
Mm.
day there was a contest for speakers, and so I joined the contest with 26,000 other people, and
Okay.
I ended up in the top 150 of that contest.
Wow.
And then that
Mm.
was, for me, that was the light that was like, okay, you can do this. The
Yeah.
last part
Right.
of the last part of this is, we would that nonprofit would bring in other speakers to do assemblies for different reasons.
Okay.
They would cover the
Mm.
cost. And I realized,
Gotcha.
well, wait a second, these guys, they're getting paid to do this.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm getting paid, um, but I want to do this on the next level. And so how do I
Mm.
do that? How do I get there? And that's kind
Hmm.
of where I started, was that question of, how do I get to the next level? And
Right.
I'll stop there if you have any questions, or because that was a lot in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, but no, I love it. Everything about that is so perfect, but it also shows you took chances on yourself. And I,
Risk.
I think one thing that I always try to emphasize to people on this channel is when we are trying to find what we're meant to do or trying to find what we connect to the most, there's a door there, but it's always comes sometimes in an opportunity you least expect. So for you to take a chance and then someone to kind of bail out, like, hey, they're not going to make it, this is your job now, you have to do it, and you stepped into it, but it felt joyful. It felt there was peace there. There was a freedom
Yep.
there where you had fun and you had the idea of, like, maybe I can build on this. Maybe this is something, it took time to build it there, but at the same time, that was your first light opening. Like you said, light at the end of the tunnel. Now you step through it to the point now, as you said, 7 years later, you're now full blown doing it. You're booked as it is, but now you have a chance, and it's such a joy. As much as we talked even before recording, the entrepreneurship world of being a speaker, yes, it can be stressful, but you're
Mhm.
enjoying what you know you are meant to be doing. And I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest struggle for so many people. What am I supposed to do? But sometimes when we take a step back and we just kind of, like, as you said, you started networking, you took opportunities, you took chances to, like, oh, that I can go connect to them, and then, oh, door open, door open. It shows the blessing of being active into some area. It always
Yeah.
opens a new door, and then sometimes what you're meant to do finds you, much like it did in your story,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah. That is so true, because that job found me, but it found me as a stepping stone. And
Mm.
I spent 7 years there. And while you're doing things, and you're getting ready to take a risk, like, perfect your
Mhm.
craft in the job that you're doing, so that you can take that
Right.
to the next level. And that's what I
It's
did,
true.
because I used opportunities to do breakout sessions at conferences. And I'd
Mhm.
get all those emails, because all the organizations would send these emails, hey, we're having a conference, or we're having a symposium, we have breakout
Mm.
sessions, submit your talk, and we'll see if we'll choose you. And so I was doing that, while I was working at
Yeah.
the nonprofit. And so in a sense, I was doing two things. I was doing my job, but I was also preparing myself to go to the next level.
Building
And there's
100%. And that
and
that's
there's like,
that's so much fun.
yeah, and there's like, what I've learned is, there's a conference for everything. And so if you're a store manager and you're like, but I want to be a speaker, there's conferences for store managers that are out there that have breakout sessions.
True.
Apply for the breakout session, go do it, and get feedback, and then make it better for
Yeah,
the next time. Like, there's
for sure.
conferences for everything. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And I resonate very much with that story because even when I worked in the therapy field for, we talked about for 7 years on my end and then made the jump, and then you 7 years on your end made the
Yeah.
jump. Even with me, like the blessing I had of being in the therapy field, working with teenagers and families and everything like this, it allowed me to gain such an understanding of how to do what I wanted to do. So it's your training. It's a training phase of your life for
Yep.
people listening. And whatever job you're in that might not be what you want to do, look at what you're in now and see the lessons you're supposed to be learning or gaining. And then once you learn the lesson, as I always say here, you pass the test, you level up. When you level up, the new
Yep.
door opens. And that's when you take the step of faith and walk through it, much like I had to do, but much like Nathan had to do, to where now I think a lot of people, they always talk about, yeah, I had to take that step of faith and then all of this happened. But it's fearful getting to that step of faith. Oh, jump off the cliff and you'll fly. All right, well, jumping off a cliff is a little terrifying to do, but more often than not, when you do it with the right head on your shoulders and realizing that there are resources at your disposal to use, you tend to fly. And Nathan, I think you're experiencing that right now with the impact you're bringing to all these students.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and I think it's one of the things that I would add is having the right people behind you, because
Mm,
you can have a plan, and you can jump out of the nest, and maybe the wings don't work, right? Maybe the
true.
muscles haven't developed in the way that there's the bone structure, whatever it is. I don't know anything about birds, but
Hmm.
whatever it is, it hasn't developed. Um, but if you have the right people behind you, I mean, they can catch you
Right.
on your way down and they can go, hey, here's what I
Mm,
experienced in this moment. So let's get you back up in the nest and let's try again.
true.
Having that is
Yes.
so important. And you have to know who that circle is. And
Right.
most people probably know it. Um, but if
Mhm.
you don't know it, I would start to kind of to write some things down, like, when I'm in this moment, who's encouraged me? When I've been depressed,
That's
who's
a good idea.
encouraged me? When I felt like a failure, who encouraged me? And
Mm,
then you'll start to find your people.
yeah. I love that. And for people listening, I think that's such a key component right there because I think a lot of times in the world we live in now more than ever, social media is always in our face, whatever it is, we forget who's already in our corner. And so for Nathan to
Yeah.
say, you say that right now, like, oh, when I was depressed, who was there for me or who encouraged me? Or when I was really anxious, who helped me? Or when I failed at that, who was there for me? It shows you that no matter what, there's support for you. I think just in the world we live in, I think a lot of tunnel view has happened. Well, we forget. And when we forget who's around us to support us, we think we're in a solo through the rest of our life, which can be very tough. And that's a strain on the mind. And I think we see that in people our own age, but we see that in a lot of teenagers. And I'm guessing that pops up a lot with the gigs that you do. People feel these kids feel lonely. They feel that they're on their own trying to navigate the world. That's what popped up with recent schools I spoke to. Kids like I'll give an example because you didn't get a chance to go the second my lead time where I went. Um, did my whole gig. Question time came around. I love the kid. He raised his hand. And he asked, "How do you know when your dream is too big and you're not supposed to do
Ooh.
it?" I go, who told you your dream is too big? And like, he got kind of shy, but he kind of led into that he'd heard it from his parents or his like friends, like, oh, you shouldn't go do that. You should go do this. I mean, I've lived that. I 100% lived that when I started pursuing coaching and speaking. And everyone's like, wait, you're going to do that? Even in high school, when I told people I wanted to do that, they looked at me like I had 10 heads. So I explained to him, like, you are the only one that can tell you that your dream is too big. But when you start to take steps towards it, you realize, wait a second, I can do this. But if you let the beliefs of other people dictate the steps you take, you're never going to, well, more often than not, if you take in the negative beliefs, you're never going to reach. But if you sit there and you have the support system in place that does believe in you, their belief becomes like a little fuel. It boosts you to realize, like, all right, if they believe in me, I can believe in myself. And then the
Yep.
confidence starts to build on and on. But yeah, that was an example I had at my lead. But in the gigs that you've done, because you've done so many since my lead for that matter, how often do those topics come up with these teenagers?
All the time. I
Mm,
did a gig in Kentucky last month, and a kid came up to
mhm,
me, and he said, "Hey, I know you talk about being resilient and overcoming obstacles, but there are people in my way of doing what I want to do, and I don't know what to do. And I said, what do you want to do? And he goes, I want to be a voice actor. Like I can do all these different voices, and that's what, like that's what I want to do. Like I want to go to I want to like work
That's
for my
cool.
home, but be available for like Hollywood or Disney or whatever, and do voice acting. And I said, so who's in your way? And he listed out all
Mm,
these people, and I said, okay, take those people off the table. The number one person that's in your way is you, because you believe
right.
what they say. And
Hmm.
it's so often that I hear that. And I was at a school last week, and a student came up to me, and they were like, hey, I wanted to thank you for your message today. It helped me feel better. To be honest with you, it I tell students all the time it's okay to ask for help. And so
Mm,
in my speech, and so he said, to be honest with you, I'm asking for help because I I was going to leave school today and go home, and I have a plan. And what I mean
mm,
by that is that's not a good plan. Like that is a plan to just end it. And I
yeah.
said, well, tell me what's going on, you know? And new student, just moved to the area. Um, Kids were kind of being mean, making fun of him,
Mm,
you know, talking about his weight and the way that he looked, um, and so immediately I just like loved on him. I mean, that's your
mm,
opportunity, right? Because those kids they don't feel loved
for
in
sure.
that moment, and so you just
Yeah.
love on them. Like you're important, you have value.
It's healing.
The opinions of
Mm,
others do not determine your value.
mm,
You need to know that, and that's for any age. The opinion of others does not
yeah.
determine your value. Um, and so
Right.
we had this moment, and then you know I connected them with the counselor and said, hey, you know, struggling, new here, don't have any friends, eating lunch by themselves, um, and
Mm,
and you know, and I told the student, you can tell him or I can tell him, and he was like, no, I'll tell him. I said, well, you're gonna tell him now. Like I want to make sure that you tell him.
mm,
Um, and so you know, he told him, he said, I had a plan after school because I didn't feel like I was accepted. I'm lonely, and
mm,
I didn't know what to do about it. And so the
mm.
counselor actually connected him, did a couple of open-ended questions and connected him with another student. And so before I left, I did three school assemblies that day. He was in the first one, and before I left,
Okay.
I stopped in the office and I said, can I check on this student? Can you bring them up to the office
Mm,
so I can check on them?" And they were like, "Yeah." And so I see him coming up the hall, smiling from ear to ear, and he walks through the office door and he goes, "Mr. Nathan, I ate lunch with someone today. Thank you so much for what you did for me today."
mm,
And it's that power of connection. That's
right.
that's what our kids are looking for. They're looking for
Hmm.
connection. And I'll get into some interesting statistics in a little bit if you want me to, but um,
For sure. Yeah.
there are some major players in the loneliness game today. And
Mm,
if you are listening and you have children, you need to write down three open-ended questions that you can ask them when they get home from school today, because just
mm,
asking them how was school, it's not enough.
yeah.
It's
It's
not
nothing.
enough.
Mm,
If we ask them questions like, what made you happy at school today?
mm, gotcha.
That not only gives you an opportunity to hear their answer, even if they have to think about it, give them time, you know. Hey, if you need 5 minutes to think about that, think about it. I'm right here, I'm not going anywhere. But they come back and say,
Mm,
this is what made me happy at school today. Now you have a conversation started, but also
yep.
now you kind of tap into their feelings and their emotions, right? Because now you know what kind of
Mm,
things make them happy. And on the flip side of
right.
that, hey, what made you sad or angry at school today? Same thing,
Mm,
right? You have this conversation.
right.
Now they get to get it off their chest, but now you know
Mm,
how to help them avoid those triggers, or just
right.
help them work through that emotion, because we don't have enough
Yeah.
conversations with our kids to help them work through
Mm,
their emotions. And I'm guilty of that too. I've got 4 kids, and
mm,
so often, how was work? Right.
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 Mm,
It was
right.
fine,
Yeah.
you know. It was
Yeah.
fine. And then it's like, okay, there's the end of the conversation. Yeah.
Exactly. That's so powerful. I love that. I love the and it's beautiful because one of the concepts I bring to the schools that I teach, honestly, any audience that I teach, is the power of questions, but the questions you ask yourself. And when you ask a new
Mm,
question, you get a new answer. So to have an open-ended question, as you said, like, oh, how is school? Fine, cool. It's like both people check it off their list and then they go their separate ways. But when you've asked, like, hey, what made you happy today in school? A thought process has to happen. Even if it's a teenager, oh, I don't want to talk right now. It's still a thought process that have to run through their mind where they, at least for a split second, think on what made them happy. So you get another little jolt of that happiness. But for a parent listening right now, or anyone listening right now that is around a student in school, no matter what the age, when you ask the open questions, it's going to, one, help them, but I believe that's going to build their relationship even closer rather than just the, as you said, the norm of, hey, how was school? How was work?
yep.
Simplicity. Have a greater moment with your student, teenager, whoever it is. But one thing you also said, Nathan, that I love is when the first student you mentioned came up to you and they felt there were a lot of things in their way. And you asked them, like, well, who do you feel is in your way? And they labeled, I don't know, we'll say 5, 10 people, whatever it is. And you said, okay, I understand. That right there, I think, is 99% of the world. We look to what external factors are blocking us rather than the internal factor that matters the most, because we are the one that is believing those people hold power over what we can do. But when you bring it for that student back or anyone listening, it's me. It's me against me.
Yep.
Well, if I believe in myself, what do I care what they say? And
Right.
that's a lot. That takes a lot for people to have the confidence to say, I don't care what they think. But when you do it, it's even just one time. Try it, people listen. Try it one time to confidently choose what you want and follow through, no matter what it is.
Yep.
Not worrying about what other people think about you or decide about you, and just see how you feel. And if there's a weight off your shoulders and you feel, hey, no, that felt good, to me, that's a sign that you can continue to do that because you're meant to do that. So, Nathan, I love that because that's hands on, both of those concepts, the questions and figuring out who's in your way, looking at yourself. Those are two of the most empowering and powerful hands on, right here, right now moments people can take from this podcast and interview and use for themselves. So, I thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah, man. And you know where that comes from for me is I didn't have that really in my life. You know, growing up, I didn't have
Mm,
people that asked me open-ended questions, and maybe they did, but I just, you know, I just don't felt like there was enough of a relationship there to even be in that space to where
right.
I felt like they had the right to, you know, when you're a teenager, you're like, you don't have the right to ask me that. Um, but I just didn't feel like that was there, you know, and so as I got older and you know started doing this, I would think to myself like, what's the best way for students to connect with one another? How can teachers connect to students, and how can guardians and parents connect to students? And when you go buy a car, they ask you open-ended
Yeah.
questions because they want to know what
Right.
emotions you have. They want to know what drives you emotionally. They want to
Mm,
build that relationship with you so that when you're sitting down at the table and they present the price to you, they go, "Hey, remember when you told me
yeah.
though, like you loved the leather seats of this car? They made you happy and they made you feel secure and encouraged. Like I'm building value in that. Why aren't we doing
Yeah.
that as teachers and guardians and parents? Hey, remember when you told me that when you weren't studying enough to be getting an A? Remember when you
Right.
told me that? But an A would make you feel excited and happy and like you were doing what you were supposed to be doing. How come you're not
Right.
doing any of those things? Like how come you're not putting in
It's
the
true.
extra study time, and how come you're going out with your friends on Friday night instead of staying home and plugging in and studying and you know going for
True.
what you want? It gives us that opportunity to just have those conversations and you know, and I'll
Yeah.
be honest with you, there's one that I ask my kids, and I tell people all the time, if you're defensive, don't ask this question. um any
Yeah.
anyone any anyone can ask it, teacher, guardian, um whatever it is. What can I be doing better as your blank? What can I be doing better as your dad? What can I be doing
Mm,
better as your teacher? What can I be doing better as
wow.
your friend? That's a
Mm,
difficult question to ask because sometimes the answers are hard to hear. But again, what
right.
it does
Mm,
is it breaks down that barrier
true.
between you and whoever it is you're talking to say, hey, I realize that there's things that I also need to change and adjust in my life, and I'm willing to do
Mm,
it. And
yeah.
and I think
Exactly.
I think that's what a lot of kids want today is they want to see that the adults in their lives don't have all the
Mm.
answers. Even though we pretend to, they want to
Yep.
see that we are vulnerable. They want to see our vulnerability, and they want to see
Yep.
us put in some effort and some work for ourselves,
Yeah,
not just for
for
them.
sure. Mm. Yeah, I love that. I love that, Nathan. I sit there too and think of it in the sense of um, maybe someone listening right now doesn't have a student or isn't around students or isn't in a school system, but that concept right there of asking, how can I be a better blank? How can I be a better wife? How can I be a better husband? How can boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is under the sun? When you are vulnerable in that state in a to a student, teacher, relationship, whatever it is, you then, when you're vulnerable, you then grow and you then make that better. It's like adding fertilizer, soil onto the grass, or whatever it is, to help it grow. But it also opens up the other person's eyes, as Nathan just said, to allow them to open up to you. And again, builds the relationship. And when the relationship is strong in the sense, whether it's a father, son, daughter, whatever it is, student under the sun, it's you then grow their ability to relax around you. And they're relaxed, there's no tension around you. Then they can dive into their studies more. Then they can dive into the relationship more. Then they can dive into their work more, whatever it is. But now, Nathan, you got my mind running with these open ended questions. So I got to ask you one, considering you are always
All right.
speaking with the teenagers. There must be a teenager that has asked you this in the past with the amount of gigs you've done. So now you're doing all this, you're the speaker, everything, you're creating such a positive impact. What would you say to younger Nathan to help him or to help him with what he was going through at the time?
Oh, my headphones just quit. I'm gonna take them off.
They go
Is
out?
that okay? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, take it out. You're good. Yeah, no worries. Do what you gotta do.
That's weird. I charged them all night. Okay. So,
You're good.
what would I tell younger Nathan? And right before that happened, I was gonna say, gonna make me cry because there's a lot that I would tell him. But I think the number one thing that I would tell him is that you can overcome this adversity with
Mm,
different types of strategies. You don't have to go run to the alcohol and the marijuana and the tobacco. There are other things that you
mm,
can do to manage that those feelings of letting others down, those feelings of feeling like a failure, those feelings of not being enough, and even some of the things that I was hiding as a kid that were adverse childhood experiences for me. I would go back and number one, make sure that I knew that it wasn't my fault. The
mm,
trauma that I went through and the trauma that kids go through, it's not their fault. And I think that
mm,
when you don't realize that, you put a lot of pressure on yourself to be angry at yourself, to be upset with yourself. How
mm,
could you let that happen? How could you even, how could you let your guard down? Like, well, those types of things. And I think it's so important that we spend time looking in the mirror and going, it's not your fault. The trauma that we
yeah.
went through, it's not our fault. And if I could go back and just look myself in the face and say, hey, what you're going through right now, it's not your fault. And
Mm.
and you can overcome this, but it's not your fault. That's exactly what I
I,
would tell myself.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, Nathan. No, like I think that's such a beautiful message you can say to yourself. I love that question of being able to talk to your younger self, yes, but what did they need? What would you go back and help them with? And to say it's not your fault. You and I know firsthand, whether we're talking to anyone of any age, not even just teenagers at a school, everyone, as we just said, has been through something where they interpret it as their fault, or they played a role, or they take it to heart, or they've been through a trauma as a child, whatever it is. And you're learning in such a phase in that age where everything is connected to you. So you think everything is either your success or a failure, but in some regards, it's only a failure based around the cultural norm that you're, the environmental norm that
Yep.
you're around. So being able to grow through that, but to look back like, hey, it's not your fault. And to essentially, it's a healing question. So I say that to you, but I say that to listeners right now of any age. Look back at yourself. Like, what one does your younger self need? Would they love to hear? Would you help them with now after going through your life to this point? But to hear, hey, it's not your fault. Everything works out okay. it takes such a stress off your shoulders. But Nathan, touch on the statistics behind that, because it's very true. Like, I want to say 100%, whatever it is, but 100% of people have some concept of that trauma. But touch on that a little bit more, because I know you have the stats behind it.
Yeah. So first of all, I'll explain what an adverse childhood experience is. It's just anything that's potentially traumatic to a child between the ages 0 and 17 years old. Statistically,
Mhm.
everyone has had one type of adverse childhood experience. The one thing that I'll
Right.
follow up on what you said before I go a little bit deeper is, um, we if we can tell ourselves and convince ourselves that it wasn't our fault, it opens up the door for us to asking for help. Because a lot of times when you
Mm,
believe something is your fault, you won't go and ask for help because you're afraid of the
mm,
retribution, the consequences, whatever might come from it. If you can convince yourself that you know for a fact that that trauma was not your fault, now you can go ask for help. So you're opening up that door. So some of the interesting statistics around adverse childhood experience is someone like me who has 4 or more adverse childhood experiences is about 30 times more likely to die by suicide. And someone like me who
wow.
has 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, they're 400% more likely to suffer from depression. And then someone like me who has 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, they are likely to lose about 20 years off the end of their lifespan. And when you look at all of
Wow.
those statistics, all of those say we weren't asking for help, right?
Mm,
We were not acknowledging that it wasn't our fault, that the trauma wasn't our fault, but we're not asking for help. We're trying to deal with this on our own. We're trying
mm,
to get through life on our own. And one of my favorite quotes is, "We don't heal in isolation; we heal in community." And you're never
mm,
going to lock yourself in a room and get better.
mm.
There's going to be some type of community that helps you through the healing, and
Right.
you can be in your room for a few days, like okay, like go through what you have to go through, but know
Mm,
that there's a community out there in every situation. There's a community out
mm.
there that can help you get through what you're going through. Uh,
Right.
I mean, they exist, and they're out there. And we have this epidemic of vaping in our schools. We have the epidemic of loneliness in our schools, and we have social media. Social
Mm,
media is, as much as it's great for connection, it's also a huge disconnect for our students, for our kids, and it's impacting
mhm.
their mental health, because
Right.
they're not getting the connection that they need. And I will tell you this: as much as guardians and parents will say, "Oh, they're always on their phone. They're always on their phone." Take a look in the mirror, because there are times where
Mm,
my kids have come to me and they wanted my time, and I'm like, "Yeah, in a minute. I'll Give me 1 second. I'm busy right now." That creates a disconnect. And
mm.
I don't know of any guardian that has a cell phone, has a tablet, has a computer that hasn't done that. I mean, I think we're all
Right.
guilty of that. And if we can learn to like tune in to our kids, and
Mm,
hey dad, hey mom, okay, that's when I hear that, that's my alarm to put that phone down, to put that tablet down.
right.
Um,
Mm,
because our kids are just lonely. And I think it's somewhere, JAMA, it's Journal of American Medical Association. I think that's right.
mhm.
They did a
Okay.
study and found that the majority of young people say that they are chronically lonely. That's
Mm,
like 16 to 24 years old. Chronically lonely.
gotcha. Okay. Mm,
That's a frightening statistic, because
mm.
if loneliness would be an adverse childhood experience, and
Right.
then if you have other ones on top of that, now those other statistics come into play, especially if you don't have connection. And that's, Bill, that's why I do what I
Mm,
do. I don't do it for, like, to be some famous speaker and all that. Like, I don't care about that. I
mhm.
want these kids to know that connection is possible, healing is possible, and overcoming adversity is
Right.
possible. That's why I do it, because there's
Mm,
this epidemic of, and if you look at all the other things, okay, we have teen vaping. Now we have teen
Yep.
THC on the rise. We have teen alcohol use. All those things, it's just lack of connection.
Hmm.
That's all that it is.
Right.
I was talking earlier about vaping. So I'm going to nerd out right now in statistics. Um, the the interesting fact about vaping is most teens who vape own their device. They own it. It's theirs. They
Hmm.
purchased it somehow. They're not supposed to own it, but they own their device. The interesting thing about that is an equal amount of students who own their vape borrow a vape
Mm.
because they're seeking connection. They don't want to use alone. They don't want to do it alone. They want that connection and they want that interaction and friendship, and that's how they're finding it. And
Mm.
it's a world right now of we're probably the most connected we've ever been, but we're also probably the most disconnected we've ever been. Two-way
Yep.
street.
Well, that's a statement. That is 100% a statement, but it's 100% a true statement. And, to build on everything you said and kind of connect it all, even any one age, much connecting to what you said to yourself of it's not your fault, the traumas that we all go through, the adverse, as you said, adverse traumas, and the statistics you gave on that was astounding, like frightening in a sense, where so many people are impacted by that. However, in the sense of everyone goes through trauma, how we interpret the trauma is what's most impactful. With clients, like adult clients that come to me for coaching, everything leads back to your childhood. And when we can remove a limiting belief, it allows you to move forward. However, it's the traumas that we go through that create those limitations and limiting beliefs. So what I love with everything you just touched on is how you're teaching the students this. I get to teach the students these concepts as well in different means, but to be able to catch a kid at that age where they're their most malleable, they are forming everything, they're forming their views of the world, they're forming where they're going to go to, they're healing. But you bring them the information you're bringing right now and to teach them, but also teach the parents and teach the teachers these concepts, even just the vaping, and this is how they're going to connect. That's how they form a friendship, because everyone's so chronically lonely. It's all this vicious cycle, but it takes someone to be able to speak up and show them this is what's happening behind the scenes. You can sit on your phone all day and scroll and scroll and scroll and think that you're connected to the rest of the world. And, oh, I saw what happened on the news today. So you're aware of it, but you're not part of it. So to be able to lend a hand and even bring up the topics that you bring, that's you, Nathan, shining a light that is needed most in the darkest area now more than ever. And for people to grasp that and even take that concept to their kids and help them connect to community, not loneliness, but to community, not isolation, as you said, but to community. And then take that to their students, their teachers, their athletes, to friends. Even people our age are still lonely. I've talked to my friends that every so often I check in with them as time allows us to, and you can sense it. And I
Yeah.
think that's something right there that adults do. We mask those traumas, that chronic loneliness, to show that everything's okay. But it comes back to what we said earlier with having the supports that are in place when you're going through something. And that is what helps heal the chronic loneliness, because you realize I'm not alone. I
Yeah.
have the people in my place. And yes, you don't have to go to a vape, you don't have to go to a drug as a student might do, as anyone might do, as alcohol, whatever it is. Because we all know and people aren't hearing it. I've never heard before. You're about to hear right now. Alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, all vaping, the whole 9 yards. You're filling a void. And that's the void Nathan just touched on in the sense of loneliness. And so to be able to take that information, realize it, swallow the pill of that, because I think so many people are following that route and then not willing to accept it. But hearing it right now, if this is you, wrap your mind around it, process it, understand it, but then that's when you have to take action and move forward. Much like we can connect all the dots together, Nathan did with his own story with, hey, this, when he was told, hey, you're going to speak right now, and he just walked through and the door opened. And now he's
Yeah.
doing it full time in a job sense. People listening, that's your own personal life. What door is open for you when you process and allow yourself to process? If you're going to run to your phone and social media and scroll, you're not focusing on what matters most. You're trying to run to external sources. But anytime we run to an external source, we're going to feel lost, because it's not going to have the answer that only comes from the inside, which is why I spend time with yourself and heal these areas. But I know I just took all that and kind of worked it all together, Nathan.
Yeah.
But it's so powerful. All these statistics are so powerful. I love it, but I want to be respectful of your time. I know we had technical
Yeah.
difficulties and
Yeah.
everything, so I
No, we're
want to
good. We're
start to
good.
close this out with you. And I 100% want to have you on again at some point. But
Yeah.
tell people, where can they find you? I know we can round out that thought right there, but where can they find you as well?
Yeah, speaking of technology, you can find me at
Yeah, right,
Nathan
exactly.
nathanrayspeaks.com. You can find me on TikTok at that Nathan Ray. You can find me on Instagram at the same thing, at that Nathan Ray. It is WRAY. That's how you spell my last name, WRAY. But that's where you can find me. I will tell you, I am so open to having other people, other than middle schoolers, follow me. I'm so open to it, but I'm blessed to have the middle schoolers that follow me because it gives me another opportunity to reach them. So, but yeah, that's how you get a hold of me.
Right? Perfect. Everyone, you're going to be able to see all of Nathan's links in his website, everything, and the credits of this video. And it's going to be all in the YouTube description. So you can go find it. If you follow me on Instagram, you can go find it. I'll be posting all about Nathan all week. So you're going to be able to follow all these areas, guys. But I'm telling you, he posts a lot of great content. Yes, for help people in middle school, as you just touched on, but it's so informative. It's so energizing, and it really helps you think about something from a different outlook, from a different perspective, which could in fact be helping you as much as what we talked on relates to, yes, teenagers and students and everything like that. Where do those teenagers and students go? They become adults that need to hear this stuff just as much. So if you're
Yeah,
someone that needed to hear this, follow Nathan as well and see if it helps you. Reach out to him,
yeah.
talk to him, whatever it may be. But Nathan, I know we hit on so many great points through our time already. What's a lasting final message you want to leave with people? I know we kind of hit a lot of key hard points for people to really process and listen to, but what's a lasting message you want to leave people right now?
Um, Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. Um,
Mm,
Everything that we go through is a learning opportunity. No matter how difficult it is, no matter how painful it is, you will come out on the other side of that learning. And
mm,
you can take those opportunities to learn, and you can grow from them. But your success will never be final. It will
mm,
it will always be a work in progress. And so if you're out there, seeking perfection in your job, you're out there seeking perfection in your relationship, it's never going to
mhm,
happen. But you can continue to work on it. You continue to grow in it, and you'll grow through those failures. The failures aren't fatal. They're
mhm,
it's I've I've never I've never once just quit. I kept
mm,
figuring life out. And at the beginning of this, I told you that I was kicked out of school and I didn't get a high school diploma. I have a high school diploma.
mm,
I didn't quit.
mm. Yeah.
Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's that courage to dig in, dig deep, figure out who you are, and to
Mm,
learn how strong you are. Because I don't think some of us know just like how strong and capable we
true.
are of doing the hard things. Everyone is capable of it.
Mm,
And you just have to dig in and find that courage to say, you know what, I'm not
right.
going to stop. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep moving forward. And if you ever feel like you can't find that courage and you are alone, I need you to know that you're not. And if you do
Mhm,
have that feeling, please call 988, and talk with someone or connect with someone in your community immediately. Because the sooner you connect, the sooner you'll get out of those feelings. If you don't want to talk with somebody, you can text help to
mm,
741-741. Those both go to the same place. And so you can just
mm,
text with somebody so that you're not alone. And I don't know about you, but if I feel alone and I feel like no one's texting me and no one's on my side, if I can text 741 and 741 and say, hey, I'm lonely, I'm not having good thoughts right now, and someone texts me back,
mm.
that's a big difference. And so you're not alone. There are people out there that love you and that care about you. I'm one of them. I don't know you, but I'm one of them, and I want to see the best for you. So, and then the last thing I'll say is, Billy, this has been fun and it's been incredible, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity to come on here and do it.
Oh, I appreciate that, Nathan. No, I love having you on. We knew way back in Michigan that we would connect, and we instantly connected on the stages and whatnot. But
Yep.
we knew there was more there, and much what you just said with that final point, it's so important, and that's what I knew having you on would bring to people. A very important matter that gets overlooked at times that you are bringing to the forefront in the school systems, but to bring it to everyone in this audience right now, it's needed. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate having you on, and I'm very excited to have you on again, where we can dive into a topic even deeper. And hopefully there won't be technical difficulties at that time. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But no, I'm so grateful, and I'm really excited for having you on again. But everyone listening right now, I thank you so much for tuning in. Please go follow Nathan. Check out his website. Like I said, it's in the YouTube description. You're about to see it roll in the credits. Go check him out, follow him on Instagram, and really dive into his content because it's so powerful and it's so needed. Or even show your kid if it's a teenager. If it's something sparks you that you know your student's going through, show it to them. And just have that, as we just said, that added support. As much as he just labeled the phone calls and the text message hotlines that you always have someone there, I can 100% assure you with Nathan's content popping up, they're going to know the message they need is there. And that's, that's a starting point. Go follow Nathan, guys. I thank you so much for being here. Please like this message on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up on below. Share this message to someone who you feel needs to hear it. At any point of this talk, if anyone popped into your mind for any reason, that's a clear-cut sign to you that they need to see it just as much. Lend a hand. Help them. Not to share Nathan, not to share me, to help that person with what they might be going through. Please share it to them. And please subscribe to Once a Week if you've not already. At the time of this video, we're at 19.9 thousand subscribers. I want to see that 20 pop up. Someone subscribe, if you have not already. But I appreciate you guys being here. If you're in need of a coach to help and discuss any of the areas discussed today, head to BillyGLifeCoaching.com and I'll be right there for you. But lastly, Nathan, it's been a blast, and I cannot wait to have you on again because we know something great's about to come out of it. So I thank you for being here.
Fun. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a good one, guys.
I've been around and doing it, but now it's my time to shine and start proving it. I'm losing it, I'm moving it. The city is where I'm made, Bostonian flow, I kick it back there. Yeah, I got game, got in a fan way. We the city of the champs, every sport we play. Spit wetter than the harbor, yeah, I'm flowing like the Charles. I be speeding on this beat, call it Turnpike Miles. Yeah, it's Google signing on, John to the Hancock, and I'm always key, I'm ready to unlock.